Hey, what's up, Superdads? So today I'm going to talk to you about my experience with Doggcrapp training. If you don't know what Doggcrapp training is, this is probably not the right video for you to be watching. I did a previous video that explained explained the details of how to do Doggcrapp training and then how I was modifying it to be closer to a high intensity style of training. So I will link that at the end of this video. If you want to fast forward, I'll also put a link in the description down below. So if you want to watch that video first, or check elsewhere to find out what Doggcrapp training is, because I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the details of the training. This is a review, my reflections, my lessons, my results from doing a cycle of Doggcrapp training. So I did basically a full cycle. A full cycle of Doggcrapp training is 8 weeks. It's 8 weeks plus then a week of sort of deloading. Right now I'm at 7.5 weeks. So I haven't done the deload yet, and I still have about 2 or 3 more workouts to do to finish up my final week. But I basically got a good sense of it. You can again find out exactly what I did through the link and through the whatever. I'll put it at the end in the description, as I said. Also, the video I'm going to link to has a spreadsheet that includes all of the exact exercises that I did with detailed instructions and all of the additional little workouts that I did as well. All that stuff is on there. So if you want to follow the exact program, feel free. Though at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about what modifications I would have made or would make if I was going to do the same thing again, based upon what I learned. Okay, so results. The first one, I increased the weight that I was using or reps I was able to do literally every single time I returned to an exercise, which is pretty awesome. Over the course of, again, 8 weeks, that means 8 times I returned to the same exercise, and each time either my reps increased or the amount of weight that I used increased. And that's, going 8 for 8 is not bad. It's 100%. I'm not a mathematician, but I believe it's 100% of the time. My weight didn't change, even though I feel like I'm eating a lot more. Honestly, I'm eating a lot. I still feel a little bit hungry, but from time to time. But like last night, I had pasta and a big bowl of ice cream, and my weight has not changed really since I started this program, despite eating a whole lot. So there's a definite calorie increase without any weight change. So make of that what you will. My waist and belly button measurements, I have lost around a centimeter. So that's like just under half an inch around my waist and belly button. So that's good. That suggests that fat loss has happened. And I also gained half a centimeter around my thigh. Now, the muscular gains here are less drastic than 1 centimeter around your waist or half an inch around your waist in 8 weeks. Isn't a whole lot. If I had been actively dieting, I probably could have lost more than that, but I wouldn't have experienced the same strength gains or muscle gains. But I gained half a centimeter, so that's like a quarter of an inch maybe around my thigh. So that's like not a tremendous amount. It could be user error in terms of measurement, but basically all of my muscular measurements increased by some amount. So even if there's some user error and I'm being more generous in my measurements a little bit, it's likely that I did gain some, and the strength increases are kind of hard to deny. So thigh 0.5 centimeters, arm was plus 0.5. The chest, it's actually I think it's at least, I know it's at least 1 centimeter that I gained around my chest and sort of upper back. But to be honest, my measuring tape only goes up to a certain, like 120 centimeters. And the first time I measured it, I was actually over 120, so it was hard to measure. I'm going to be running out of tape measuring room. I had to get a new tape measure pretty soon. But at least 1 centimeter around my chest, which is fantastic. And then my calf is basically the same, or maybe even a little bit smaller. So I might have lost some size around my calf. Seems unlikely, given that I was at the very least doing maintenance volume for my calves. The fact that they didn't grow isn't that surprising, considering how stubborn a muscle group they are. And the fact that muscle growth was apparently happening everywhere else in my body might suggest that there wasn't enough leftover resources to make to contribute to calf growth, but no growth there, perhaps even loss, though that would be a bit strange. So that's good. Right now, for those of you who are who don't know, like I have a long training history, right? I've got 15 years, 20 years of trying different kinds of training and this kind of stuff. And within 8 weeks to gain like a centimeter, half an inch around my chest, right? Or half a centimeter around my arm or something like this. That's like pretty fast growth for my training history, given my training history and the brevity of the training period about which we're talking here. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that. It's enough to convince me that this is a good hypertrophy program. Also, I didn't mention this, but my forearms definitely grew. I didn't measure them prior, but like there's noticeable growth and much more vascularity in my forearms. And I chalk that up to the fact that there's, forearm training is treated as like a core muscle group that you need to train regularly. You train it hard, you train it to failure, alongside legs and arms and everything else. And I didn't typically do that. I did that more as incidental workouts here and there, that kind of stuff. But inserting into the regular rotation seems to have had a really good effect. Okay, so my reflections. The gains were great considering the stuff I talked about before, the strength gains and the muscle gains. I'm impressed with them. I haven't had any joint pain really yet, despite the fact that I'm just constantly trying to increase the amount of weight that I'm able to lift. Now, I say yet because near the end there, like I was dipping with 65 pounds or 30 kilos around my waist, and it took a little bit more to warm up my shoulders. I had to be a little bit careful. I was beginning to get the sense that the creakiness, the joint pain was around the corner, which is, I believe, why the program is built like do 8 weeks, take a deload week, and then you can go back to it. So I don't know if a week off would help with that. Probably, in my experience at least, if you have joint issues, it takes longer than 1 week of deloading. 1 week of deloading can give your muscles a chance to really catch up and recover, but joints take longer, so I doubt it will be, and that's why I'm going to actually switch back to non-Doggcrapp training after this. I'll go back to a more traditional style of high-intensity training, take it easier on my joints for a little bit before maybe giving it another run at the Doggcrapp training. So no joint pain yet. That's a good thing. I was basically eating kind of whatever I wanted. I've been eating a lot of snacks and junk food and all sorts of stuff on the side, and like I can't gain weight, right? Apparently. Rest pause training was really fantastic. Now, I was already familiar with rest pause training, but I always recommend it to people who do training at home. If you're training in a commercial gym and you're doing high intensity training on well-designed machines, I don't know that it's necessary to do the rest pause training, but if you're working especially with like dumbbells or something like that, rest pause training is a really good protocol to use because it's so hard to hit real deep levels, of failure, to spend a lot of time near failure when you're having to worry about the stability of, let's say, a dumbbell over your head while you're doing a incline chest press or something like that, right? You have to stabilize and everything like that, and your stabilizers might fail first. So rest pause is a great approach, in my opinion, for people who are training at home with more basic implements and equipment. I love the idea of the range. The rep range for Doggcrapp was great. It keeps you in the medium range. There's no work that's done below 6 reps, and there's for some exercises you're shooting for 30 reps, and once you get over 30 reps, then you are advancing to the next weight, and that sounds like a lot, but remember you're doing a rest pause, so that would mean maybe you get to 15 or 16 with the first set, and then the next set you get 8, and then the next set you get 6. Well, then that's 30. But really, you spent time between 6 reps and 20 reps. 20 reps might be a little bit high, but for the kind of work that you're doing, it made a lot of sense. So that was great. And then I love the idea of tracking when you do rest pause sets, the way that it's tracked, at least this is the way I started tracking it, was I gave up on tracking like the initial set and then the first rest pause and then the second rest pause as 3 different sets, and I just added them all together. So if I did that, 16 reps and then 8 more reps with the rest pause and then 6 more with I just write that down as 30, and I'd say, okay, I made it as a 30, time to bump up the weight next time. And it simplified everything. I only needed to keep one number in my head. I didn't have to like write down my number in between sets when I was trying to do rest pause, which, you want quick turnaround. And so it kept me focused and in the moment, and it made things real simple and streamlined. So that was great. I also like doing the way that deadlifts and squats are programmed in this approach for 2 reasons. One, the rep range is good. It's all sort of middle range reps. So for squats, you're looking at 6 to 12 for 2 straight sets, followed by a widowmaker that's 20 to 25 with less weight. Deadlifts, similar thing. And then things like, and so the rep range there, a lot of people when they do deadlifts, right, they are doing it sets of 5 or less. But I actually find that doing them in that middle range of reps is really taxing on the cardiovascular system and really good for hypertrophy, and you can get into a rhythm with it. I liked doing it that way. It's good for safety, right? You're much less likely to end up with joint pain. You're much less likely, blowing out your low back when you're training in that middle rep range with the big compounds like squat and deadlift. Also, the fact that they program those bigger lifts at the very end of the workout as opposed to the beginning. Very often people will say, start with your compound lifts. And for beginners, for people like that, it makes a lot of sense. For me, putting them at the end really worked because it allows you to train those much more safely, right? Doing deadlifts after you've already trained to complete failure with pull-ups means that your mid-back is so fatigued that you don't need really heavy weight in order to train the deadlift effectively. So you're training the deadlift at a middle rep range with lighter weight. You're still getting the hypertrophic effect. You're still definitely developing strength, but you're not potentially compromising your low back or setting yourself up for injury because you're trying to move super heavy weight in order to get that effect. So for that, it was great. Same with squat. Training squat last. It's the first time I've ever done that, and it made a lot of sense. And it also has to do with fatigue management, right? So if you're going to train, like especially if you were to do straight sets of squats and then you're going to put a widowmaker at the end of that, and then you're going to jump into doing your other things, man, the amount of systemic fatigue that you have at that point, like even if you didn't use your upper body, you use every muscle in your body for squats, and that's the thing, right? Then you go into some sort of, let's say, dips or pull-ups or whatever it would be, or even bicep curls. You're gonna be weaker. You just blew your wad on the squats. So saving it for the end and leading up to it, and knowing when you get to that widowmaker set, all right, this is the last thing I'm doing. I just give this everything that I've got, and I don't want to be able to walk afterwards. I want to push myself to the extreme. Really was a good experience, and I think I will do a lot more of putting squats and deadlifts at the end, training in that mid rep range, and and having the associated muscles, like if you're doing hamstring, like a RDL Romanian deadlift or a straight leg deadlift prior to doing your squats, man, I would, even though my squat increased in weight week over week over week, by the end I still wasn't lifting that very, very much on the squat, and that's primarily because I was going into it having trained my glutes and hamstrings to failure already with RDLs. So like primary movers, right, particularly the glutes for the squat, being so fatigued meant that I really didn't need that much weight to make the squats hyper effective. All right, let's move on to biceps and legs. So I like the pairing of bicep training with leg training. Also novel for me, but it worked out really well, especially training biceps before you train legs because of, again, that systemic fatigue. But I felt like my bicep curl got so much stronger, and my biceps absolutely have more like vascularity now, like the vein point pops out more. And as I said, 0.5 centimeter increase in arm girth over an 8-week period for someone who's already has decently developed arms. That's pretty big, right? That big, it's surprising. But doing biceps with legs actually makes a lot of sense because there's very little carryover there. Okay, so then there's one other thing that I learned. This is more of an abstract idea, but a really important one, is I was surprised at how little fatigue carryover there was from one exercise to the next. So let's say like dips to shoulder press, for example. Obviously, you're using your anterior delt when you're doing dips. And I'm training these to failure, and then I'm training them beyond failure, because then after I trained to failure with the rest pause set 3 times, then I'm dropping the weight, I'm doing a drop set and busting out as many more as I can, and then I'm doing a slow eccentric without the added weight, and then I'm doing a loaded stretch at the end to really exhaust the muscles. And so I would have thought that, boy, there's really no reason to even track my overhead press, because my shoulders are going to be fatigued enough that it'll be hard to progressively overload that. But it wasn't the case. Both my dip and my overhead press, or behind the neck press, is actually the one that I did following dip, increased week over week. And so that was a big surprise, and it's telling me that I should actually get back to tracking more things than I was. Whereas previously I was just tracking the major compound lift that they do in the beginning of the exercise, a given workout, and then sort of leaving the rest of it to subjective feel, or training it to failure, of course, but sort of just trusting that I was getting stronger. I'm going to start tracking more things and seeing where there's carryover of fatigue and where there isn't. So that was a really good thing to learn. Okay, now a couple issues that I did come across. One is, for those of you who have super busy lives, maybe you're getting up in age and you're worried about injury. This is one of my issues with highly structured training. And Doggcrapp training is highly structured. It's like workout this many times a week, do this workout, aim for this kind of progressive overload each time. And while that worked really well, it also set me up for a situation where I ended up causing myself a hamstring injury. So because of life events, I missed a workout on Friday, so I had to do it on the next day, Saturday, and I had to do it on Saturday because if I didn't do it Saturday, then it would be moved to Sunday, and if I did it on Sunday, then I couldn't do the next workout on Monday, and so the whole timetable would have gotten shifted back, so I had to do it on Saturday. But the thing was, on Saturday night, I also had to teach a martial arts class, but so Saturday morning, I'm training deadlifts to failure, like a madman. And then that night I'm training a martial arts class, and boy, oh boy, did I yank my hamstring out of whack doing, a front kick. It was bad. So I had to take like a week off, a week and a half off, and rehab it and get it back into shape before I could get back to it. It came back relatively quickly, but it's just an example how highly structured workout programs like this force you to shift your life around the program or fit your life into the program rather than the program fitting into your life. And very often that leads to injury, whether it's a physical injury or, inconvenience, or the wheels fall off somewhere, whether it's, you don't spend the time you want with the people that you want to spend time with, you screw up something professionally, whatever it is. But these highly structured programs, there are both merits and demerits to them. That's something to know. Okay, I don't think it's ideal for a home gym. So I have like Nuo bells, the adjustable dumbbells that I was using for a lot of the exercises, and they only jump up by 4 kilos, an adjustment. So I'm going from doing bicep curls with 20 kilograms to the next jump is 24 with each arm, which is a huge jump for a bicep curl. And made it a little bit tough, and I think it contributed to my compromising my technique some ways. Now, no excuses. I'm the one who compromised my technique, and also I would say that my not having the best kind of equipment to do this side of program contributed to that. Another one would be I don't have a great way to do like a hamstring curl that I can progressively overload in an easy way. I ended up doing RDLs. I ended up doing basically straight-legged deadlifts, a very similar variation using a trap bar. Those were my 2 hamstring exercises. they're both effective, but they're also so similar that it was almost like I felt like I was just doing too much of that movement. Whereas it would have been really nice to have some sort of hamstring curl machine. It would have been really nice to have dumbbells that increase smaller increments, that sort of thing. I also ran into a problem where by the end I was incline dumbbell pressing 32K in each hand, for more reps than I was supposed to be doing. I should have increased the weight, but I had no way to increase the weight because my adjustable dumbbells only go up to 32K. So I outgrew my weights very quickly. And so if I were in a commercial gym, that wouldn't be an issue. So I would say it's maybe depending on your home gym and what you have available to you, it might not be ideal for a home gym. I think, I made it work, obviously, good results, but again, not ideal. Okay, next. I don't know. So I talked about the strength gains. This is something that I'm a bit undecided about. That is how much I actually did gain in terms of like muscle. I told you the measurements. I will say though that a tremendous amount of the strength gains I experienced came from neurological adaptation, because it had been a while since I squatted regularly. It had been a while since I deadlifted, a really long time since I deadlifted. These sorts of things, and especially doing them week over week without changing the program at all, the workout at all. There was a lot of neurological adaptation where my body learned the skill of those movements, and that's why I got stronger as opposed to building new muscular tissue or something like that. There's also, I absolutely compromised my technique more and more as I went. I started off being very strict about never locking out when I was doing my squats and that sort of thing. A very strict tempo or cadence to the repetitions, but by the end I was pausing a little bit more. I was speeding through certain parts of the repetition a little bit more, and I chalk that up to, it is my decision. I'm the one who made it, so full responsibility where it goes. It also has to do with when you're chasing progressive overload and that's your goal, you end up sacrificing things like technique and things like consistency in order to achieve the goal. That's the nature of a goal, is if you set it as the goal, it becomes the priority and other things get sacrificed to the priority. That's what a priority is. So I think if I kept going down this, if I didn't have a break now, I might just continue compromising my technique and it would go in a bad direction. So it's probably good to take a break now and come back to it a little bit later. Okay, then we got time commitment. Now, this is not going to sound like a lot to some of you, but it was about a 90-minute time commitment, a little bit more, maybe even up to 2 hours per week, especially because it's a home gym and I had to load a lot of the weights and it was not always convenient to do the things that whereas if I just had dumbbells, it would be much easier. Not always a convenient way to work out, but it was about a 90-minute to 2 hour commitment, whereas previously I would say my workout commitment per week was something like an hour, definitely 90 minutes or less. So a bit of an increase in time commitment, and for some of you that may be a deal breaker. Okay, so if I were going to modify this program, how would I do it? One, I would add more frequent calf work, at least for myself. Some of you out there may not need it, but I absolutely do. My calves are a weak point, and frequency, I feel like, helps them. I don't have a whole lot of evidence of that because they just haven't grown in forever, but I feel like they might have shrunk during the course of this program, and that hurts. That hurts my soul. So I would do more calf work as incidental stuff. I would also include a hamstring curl style of exercise. So whether that would be like a towel slide on the ground with your hamstrings, or a Swiss ball roll, or just something like that involves a Nordic curl, maybe, that involves hamstring curls. Even if I wasn't able to effectively track the progressive overload of the movement as I could with RDL, I felt like doing RDLs for two separate leg workouts was a bit too much of the same movement. So I would do something that's bent legged for my hamstring. I would reduce the number of breaths that I took. So I didn't do this with a timer. I did my rest pauses with 5 seconds of breathing between each set. So reach failure, breathe, not 5 seconds of breathing, 5 breaths through my nose. So failure, 5 breaths through my nose, failure, 5 breaths through my nose, failure. Okay. What I found though was that I was able to prolong those breaths for up to like 35 seconds, even those 5 breaths. It wasn't tracking it, but I just, I was able to push it longer. than I expected. And so I would shorten that down to about 3 breaths and shoot for anywhere between 10 to 20 seconds as the breaks between the rest pauses. Now that might result in me getting fewer reps, but as long as that remained consistent across the workouts, it would still represent progressive overload of the kind I was looking for, and it would have more of a, tax my cardiorespiratory system more. It would, have all sorts of positive effects. So that's what I would do. And then with regard to the straight sets, I just sort of winged it with those. It's supposed to be about a minute. I would do 10 breaths because I really like the breathing as measurement for in between interset time. I really like the breathing as a measurement for that because it keeps you present. You're not like, press a stopwatch. It forces you to relax yourself and then get yourself back up through internal controls as opposed to some external, dictation of when you should be doing what. So I would go 3 and 10, 3 for rest pause sets and 10 for straight sets. And then the last one, I did a trap bar squat and a back squat as my 2 quad exercises. I would probably go back squat and front squat if I were to do it again. The trap bar squat is a fantastic exercise, but I also felt like it involved a bit too much upper body. Like, could feel like my obviously grip, but also like my lats and stuff might be fatiguing before my legs were, that kind of stuff. And particularly because it's meant to be a quad exercise, the front squat would be a better choice, I would say, for that one than what I chose to do. Okay, so there you have all my reflections on the Doggcrapp program. I think it was really good. I don't think it's necessarily just for intermediate or advanced lifters. I could see a newbie benefiting a lot from this kind of training. Their numbers wouldn't be that impressive. My numbers weren't that impressive, but I still feel like making the progress over week is what really matters, and I was able to do that. So if you're interested in following this program, again, I'll put the link in the bottom. You can check it out, spreadsheet and full explanation in the other video. If you want another kind of program that, maybe you don't have the time, you don't have the space, you don't have a whole lot of money, you don't have a whole lot of equipment, I've got programs for you. They're down below. There's a Facebook group if you want to join and get a whole lot of support and free resources and that kind of stuff. And thank you so much for all of your attention here. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you next time. Go be super.